Two men are born the same year, in the same town, with roughly the same mind. 20 years later, one of them is still setting an alarm clock so someone else can tell him what to do with his day. The other one hasn't been told what to do in over a decade. Same hours in a day, same number of years. Neither one is smarter. So what happened? It wasn't luck. Luck doesn't repeat itself for 20 straight years. It wasn't talent either. Talent is common. What's rare is what these two men were quietly building, underneath the work, without either of them ever saying it out loud. One of them was carrying water. The other one was digging a well. Here's what that actually looked like. Two men stand at the edge of a desert village. Both need water, same thirst, same stakes. The first man grabs a bucket, walks to the river, fills it, carries it home. Hard work, honest work, and it pays him immediately, which is exactly why it feels smart. The second man looks at the same river and starts digging. For weeks, he produces nothing. His neighbors laugh. Meanwhile, his bucket-carrying friend is already drinking, bathing, selling the extra water in the village square for coins the digger doesn't have. But the well doesn't care how long it takes to finish. One day, water breaks through, and from that morning forward it flows without him lifting a single bucket. He sleeps, it flows. He travels, it flows. He grows old and dies, and his grandchildren are still drinking from a hole he dug decades before they were born. That's the entire gap between rich and poor, distilled down to two men and a hole in the ground. The poor think in paychecks. Show up, trade the hours, collect the pay, repeat, forever, until the body gives out or somebody else decides the job is over. The rich think in systems. Build it once, absorb the pain of the build. Then let the structure keep producing long after the builder has stopped. Machiavelli never once wrote about paychecks. He wrote about principalities. How power is seized, held, and eventually lost. But strip away the crowns and the mercenary armies, and what's left underneath is a blueprint for anyone trying to build something that outlives their own effort. His central warning was that a ruler who depends only on his own daily strength is one bad season away from losing everything, while a ruler who builds durable structures beneath him holds power long, after his personal strength has faded. That warning wasn't really about kings, it was about foundations. Today, 7 of them. 7 quiet systems the wealthy build instead of the paycheck everyone else is still collecting. Stay for the 7th. It's the one almost nobody survives long enough to use, and without it, none of the other 6 actually hold. 1. The system of ownership. Most people are convinced the goal of work is to get paid well for what you do. Machiavelli would have told you the payment was never the point. The position was the point. In The Prince, he draws a sharp line between rulers who lean on borrowed strength and rulers who stand on their own foundation, because borrowed strength always has to be repaid on someone else's terms, and foundation belongs to no one but you. A paycheck is borrowed strength. Every dollar of it exists only because someone else keeps deciding to send it. Picture a tenant farmer and a landowner standing on the exact same field. The tenant wakes before sunrise, breaks the soil all day, and at harvest hands most of it to the man who owns the land beneath his feet. He is skilled. He is exhausted. The harvest doesn't exist without him, and at the end of the season, the field still isn't his. The landowner didn't touch the dirt that day. He owns the thing the work happens on top of. 10 years pass. The tenant has logged 3,000 more days on his knees in the soil, and he owns nothing but the calluses to show for it. The landowner has aged the same 10 years, except now he owns 2 more fields, purchased with harvest grown by other tenants he's never even met. Neither man is smarter, neither is more honest. One of them owned the thing that produces, the other only owned his own effort, and effort, unlike land, doesn't compound. It just gets tired. This is why the wealthy obsess over ownership long before they obsess over income. A small business, a slice of property, a share of a company that isn't theirs to run, only theirs to hold. Not because it pays more per hour. Early on, it almost never does, and it costs more in lost sleep than any job ever would, but because eventually it stops requiring the hour at all. You will never out-earn a system that doesn't need you. But owning something is only step 1, because ownership without force behind it is just a nice idea sitting in a drawer, and that's where most people quietly stall out. 2. The system of leverage. The common belief is that the way to earn more is to simply work harder, longer hours, more hustle, more grinding until something finally gives. Machiavelli knew better than almost anyone that no single man, however capable, holds a state on the strength of his own two hands. He needed armies, alliances, instruments that carried his will further than his own body ever could. Wealth runs on the identical principle. One person's labor has a hard ceiling. Leverage doesn't. Picture a man swinging a hammer. Beside him, a second man operating a machine that swings 1,000 hammers at once. Both are working. Only one of them is multiplying. There are 4 kinds of leverage available to nearly anyone, though most people spend a lifetime only ever touching one. Labor, other people's time, working for you, instead of you. Capital, other people's money, put to work on your behalf while you sleep. Code and media, a piece of software, a video, a book, built once and sold to the 10th person exactly as easily as the first. And permission, the credibility that lets your name open a door your effort alone never could have kicked in. A freelance designer and a software founder start in the same year. Both talented, both broke. The designer bills by the hour, and every dollar she earns is capped by how many hours fit into a week, a ceiling she hits fast, because a week only holds so much. The founder builds a piece of software once. It takes him longer. He earns almost nothing the first year, while she's already comfortable and telling people she made the smarter call. By year 5, her income is still bolted to her calendar. His software has sold to 11,000 people he will never personally meet. And it sold to the 11,000th exactly as effortlessly as it sold to the first. She's still swinging the hammer. He built the machine. Leverage multiplies whatever you feed it, which means it multiplies good decisions. And it multiplies mistakes just as fast. That's exactly why the next system exists. 3. The system of compounding. Most people believe wealth gets built through big dramatic moments. The lucky investment, the viral break, the one deal that changes everything overnight. But Machiavelli's real insight into power was patience wearing the costume of strategy. He warned that those chasing quick results are usually the first to lose everything quickly, because they never build anything sturdy enough to survive a single bad season. Real power gathers in layers, slowly, until one day it's simply too heavy to knock over. Picture 2 brothers, each handed the same modest sum at 25. One spends his on comfort, nicer things, faster upgrades, the appearance of having already arrived. The other buys a small, unglamorous stake in something that grows, a business, a basket of businesses, a piece of land, and then does the one thing almost nobody has the stomach for. He leaves it alone. For years, nothing visibly happens. His brother's life looks better on the surface, season after season, photo after photo. Then something strange starts in the background. Not a leap, a curve. The pile left untouched begins growing faster than the money being added to it. By year 20, it's generating more in a single year than either brother earned working the year before. This is the logic Machiavelli's own thinking on fortune points toward. Not that patience guarantees the outcome, but that the man who prepares the ground has something waiting for him when the moment arrives, while the man who only reacts is always building from zero. The growth here was never dramatic in any single moment. It was invisible. And then, all at once, it wasn't. The paycheck mind wants proof today. The system's mind is patient enough to let math finish what effort alone never could. But patience only pays off if you can actually see what you're being patient about. And that's the part almost nobody's trained for. 4. The system of imponation. The common belief is that hard work alone separates the successful from the struggling. Machiavelli spent nearly as much time gathering intelligence as he spent plotting action, because he understood something simple and brutal. The ruler who sees clearly moves correctly, and the ruler who moves blindly walks into traps he never saw coming, no matter how hard he tries. Picture a card table. 9 players can only see their own hand. One player can see everyone's. The 9 are working just as hard, thinking just as carefully, but they are not playing the same game as the one man with sight. This is exactly what separates the person who reads the contract, studies the market, and understands how money actually moves, from the person who simply shows up and trusts that effort alone is enough. It rarely is. The employee who never bothers to learn how equity works will spend an entire career paid in dollars, while someone doing comparable work in the very same building gets paid in ownership instead. 2 colleagues start on the same day, same salary, same title. One spends 5 years mastering her craft and only her craft. The other spends those same 5 years mastering her craft and quietly mastering how the company itself make money, who owns what, and how deals actually get structured behind closed doors. When a small division spins off into its own company, one of them is offered a job, the other is offered equity. Same intelligence, same hours, different information, which means the first 4 systems all share one enemy. Time slipping by unnoticed, and the next 3 exist for exactly that reason, to protect what you've built once it finally starts producing. 5. The system of reputation. Most people treat their reputation as a side effect, something that just happens automatically if you're good enough at the work. Machiavelli was almost obsessive about how a ruler was perceived, because in his framework, perception was itself a form of power. A ruler who was feared and respected could act with an authority no army alone could purchase. Trust behaves the same way in a life, invisible but load-bearing. 2 contractors bid on the same city block. One has done excellent work for a decade, but only 3 people know it, his old clients, and no one else. The other has done comparable work across that same decade, except he spent it being visible, known, recommended, talked about at dinner tables he's never even sat at. When the city needs someone for something big, they can't hire a name they've never heard. The invisible one keeps bidding, one project at a time, forever. The visible one stops bidding entirely, because now people come find him. A reputation once built behaves exactly like a well. It produces trust without forcing the builder to re-earn it from scratch, stranger after stranger, project after project. This is why the wealthy guard their name as fiercely as their money. A damaged reputation doesn't just cost you the deal sitting in front of you. It quietly closes doors on deals you will never even know you lost. But visibility alone isn't protection. It just means more people are watching the day something finally goes wrong. 6. The system of risk design. The common belief is that wealth demands big risks, betting everything, going all in, gambling the whole future on one shot. This might be the most dangerous myth in modern money culture, and Machiavelli would have rejected it outright. He warned rulers never to depend entirely on a single source of strength, one ally, one fortress, one army, because anything that can be your only lifeline can also become the single point where everything collapses at once. Picture a tightrope walker with no net, betting his entire life on perfect balance, every single day, forever. Now picture a second walker on the same rope, wearing a harness that costs him almost nothing to wear and barely anything in performance. But on the one day he slips, he doesn't die. He just falls, laughs, and climbs back up. The wealthy aren't reckless, they're structured. They diversify income across more than one source, so a single layoff or a single lost client doesn't erase the whole picture. They build reserves, not because they expect to fail, but because they've engineered a world where failure is a bruise instead of a funeral. They use the boring, unglamorous legal and financial structures nobody wants to talk about at parties, specifically so that one bad bet can never take the entire empire down with it. The paycheck mind sees risk management as fear. The systems mind sees it as the very thing that lets you take bigger risks safely, over and over, for decades, because you've already made sure that losing once was never going to mean losing everything. Which brings us to the last one, the system that decides whether any of the other 6 ever actually get the chance to finish. 7. The system of time horizon. And here it is. The one almost nobody survives long enough to use. The poor think in months. Rent is due monthly. Bills land monthly. The paycheck arrives monthly, gets spent monthly, and the cycle resets over and over with no room left to think past the next 30 days, because the next 30 days are already spoken for before they arrive. The rich think in decades. Machiavelli's entire framework for statecraft rested on a horizon most people never even consider. Not how do I win this month, but how do I build something that outlasts my own reign, into hands I will never personally meet. He studied Rome not because Rome won one battle brilliantly, but because Rome built law, infrastructure, and institutions sturdy enough to outlive every single emperor who ever sat on its throne. Picture two gardens, planted the same spring. One gardener checks daily, expects fruit by the end of the month, and rips the plant out of the ground in frustration when nothing's grown yet. The other gardener waters it once, walks away, and doesn't check back for a year, because he planted a tree, not a vegetable, and trees were never built to bear fruit in month 1. 10 years later, the first garden has been replanted 11 separate times and still produces almost nothing worth eating. The second garden is a forest, and it will keep feeding that gardener's children whether he ever visits it again or not. This is the final, hardest shift, because every system before this one requires a horizon long enough to let it work. Rip them out in month 3 because nothing's visible yet, and you haven't proven that systems don't work. You've only proven you never gave one the time it needed to become real. Ownership instead of tenancy, leverage instead of the hammer, compounding instead of the quick win, information instead of blind effort, reputation as infrastructure, not accident, risk that's designed, not gambled, and a horizon measured in decades, not the next 30 days. 7 systems, one well. The goal was never really to become rich. Rich is just a number, and numbers move. Up this year, down the next, gone completely the moment the paycheck stops. The real goal is to become someone who no longer needs to be paid in order to be provided for. Someone whose effort from 5 years ago is still quietly working right now, while you're somewhere else entirely, doing something that has nothing to do with it. The bucket only holds water while you're the one carrying it. The well keeps giving long after you've walked away. So the only question left is the one you can't outsource to anyone else. Are you still filling a bucket, or have you finally started digging? If this changed even slightly how you see your own next move, there's more where this came from. Subscribe and stay for what's next.